But why?
Yep.
How
Wrong.
many times do you have to be over there?
Yep. Always in the driver's.
You always are trying. It is
I'm
like
the
the
captain now.
episodes.
Look at me. Look at me. I am the captain now. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Hashtag Sports.
I'll let him do it.
No, after you.
That's it. That's it. Oh yes. So yeah, you threw me off with all that, Paul.
Sure did.
Well, you know what, Paul? This is one of our impromptu ones that we have our lives for the hashtag nation, because you know what, there's some things floating around on Twitter, some things floating around in the Buffalo Bills verse in the NFL that we just chaps my ass, Paul, with some of the things that are going on.
Chaps my ass, he says.
It really does. You know, I could have pulled a Peter Griffin and said grinds my gears, but you know what, I'm just so upset with some of the things that are going on, some of the misconceptions that are going on. So hopefully by the end of tonight, or whenever you watch this, it's going to be available on iTunes and Spotify as well. If you're listening to this, we'll have some answers for you, especially Buffalo Bills fans and Bills Mafia, of what the hell is going on at One Bills Drive. Have we been there? No. However, in the grand scope of what happens in the NFL, we'll hopefully provide some insight on some of the things that are going on with Brandon Beane, and everyone's going like, okay, Brandon, now it's time to make a move. We're going to explain a few reasons why a move really hasn't been happening yet. So hopefully you guys stick around and have a little bit of fun with us as well. As always, you can find all of our content on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. #sports, #sports. Wherever you type in #sports, you're going to find me and Paul. Like I said, as before, on iTunes and Spotify. The charity for 2022-2023 is the Williams Syndrome Foundation. All the super chats will be going to that, so keep that in mind as you watch tonight. And in association with CryerMedia.com or CryerMedia.ca and our sponsor for tonight, Mr. Rogers Homes. So we had to get all of those particulars out before I just start going absolutely ballistic of what's going on. You know, why haven't you signed anybody, Bean? It'd be a great time to get a free agent, Bean. It'd be a great time to sign this guy, Bean. I want to first, before Paul even says anything, Paul, you were a year ahead of your prediction on Isaiah McKenzie being cut. You were a year ahead.
Yeah, I was so frustrated when they kept him. And this whole year was just like, this whole last year was just like a carnival crazy, because every time you see Isaiah McKenzie 65 yards downfield going like this, trying to catch a football. So glad that's over. I'm glad that adventure is over with.
Yes.
Yep.
And
we moved on.
We moved on from Marquez Stevenson. No, I'm just kidding. If you guys haven't checked out our previous episode, we talked about all the draft picks that Brandon Beane has acquired for Josh Allen after he's been picked, and only 4 currently on the team. Mm-hmm. So go check that out and go see our breakdown of that, getting Josh Allen some help. But
the Bills did retain. They do have some help there. So that episode, as I said, goes through. The Bills haven't had the best reputation for keeping drafted offensive players. I very much agree, right? But then you get weird things like, you know, Buffalo just re-signed Ike Bucker, right? So like, not a drafted player, but like a player they're just not moving on from.
You know what, Paul?
I don't mind the Bucker signing, though. It's $1 million. I'm good with that. You know, replacement level player. Yeah. I'm good. I'm good there.
Even if you don't use insurance, you always have to have it. Yeah. You know, and Bean, we have talked about many times in the past that Bean loves having those insurance policies before he goes for broke in the draft and certain things. I mean, they signed a running back. How many years ago was it again? TJ Yeldon before they draft Devin Singletary.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that was the same draft. If I'm wrong, the chat will correct me in the final. Just Ronald, B. Lightning, Ali Akbar, Miguel, Daniel. We got everybody in the chat. Love you guys when you guys join us. Hopefully we have a little bit of fun tonight. But
my favorite. Well, before we get moving on, Daniel Garies brings up, hey, I hear the Bills are interested in ex-Seahawks DT. My favorite name of the offseason, Poona Ford.
Poona Ford?
Poona.
Well, get ready for the 1 or the 3 technique coming into Buffalo.
You know, one thing that I find most interesting about that, right, is you're exactly right? It's a 1 tech, right? Like that tells you a lot. And do they have money for bringing in a one tech? Can we just stop the craziness of having 67 defensive tackles on? Like, got like 800 defensive tackles on this roster and like 2 linebackers, and one of them being Tyler McCaven. Like you just Dodson.
Hey, we got Dodson.
We drafted Terrell Bernard. Apparently, you can only be a linebacker for Buffalo if your name starts with T. Terrell Dodson, Tremaine Edmonds, gone now.
Don't even bring up the Predator. I'm still hurt over that. And I'm leaving this comment on there until we get to it, Paul. But I'm
all right.
I'm still hurt about Tremaine Edmonds leaving. I can't see him in the Monsters of the Midway. I just can't. Like, he's going to be phenomenal. He's going to do well for that defense. He's going to play well in that division. Kudos to him and his career and what he's going to be doing. But I can't see him wearing other than the 49 for the Buffalo Bills. I can't.
I mean, good for Chicago to be able to trade a linebacker, get draft compensation for him, and then sign his replacement. You know what I mean? Like, good for Chicago to do that. But, Buffalo, and again, you look at what this system is. Yeah. We don't know what the system's going to be, right? With Leslie Frazier stepping away, now you start getting into some personnel questions. You need a player like Tremaine Edmonds to run that Tampa 2, but that's not the defense that McDermott typically likes to run. If McDermott's going to be calling the shots this season, which it looks like it probably is, Tremaine Edmonds isn't a necessity there, right? He's an expensive luxury at that point.
But the point is this, Paul, is that in more than likely, and this will tie into Oliver, more than likely in 2024, the Buffalo Bills will be without their 2017 first round pick and 2018 first round pick. Mm-hmm. Or was 2017 and 2018.
Yeah.
Defensive first round picks. Late Jay Barkley comes in and says, late to the party, did you guys discuss the scenario of trading Oliver?
Mar is going to have a conniption. All right. So I'll take this, Mar. Yeah, no problem. I got it. So Ed Oliver has like no trade value. He just doesn't have any.
I'm willing to be wrong here.
A player in a contract year, right? Like, I think that's sort of that's what a lot of people always say. Well, you got to get value for that player. I can't believe you let him walk away without getting anything for him, right? Ed Oliver has already posted that he's waiting for a big old bag of money, right? And Buffalo's not going to give it to him. If they're interested in signing Poona Ford, they're not interested in extending Ed Oliver, right? Like, they could get some salary cap relief from working on an Ed Oliver extension. It's not going to happen, though.
No, it's not. And I'll just follow up with this. Can we make some trades to get more earlier on draft picks, trade next year's first or second, make it a bigger impact? Now, we're in a win now place. And I understand everyone likes to talk about the window. And Paul, we've talked about this quite a bit off of camera, and we're going to put it on camera for everybody else. But here's the deal. Ed Oliver has 1 year left at $10 million. Mm-hmm. As an undersized, looking at this realistically, he's an undersized defensive tackle who hasn't really lived up to a first round billing. He is a stud in certain situations in the game. Mm-hmm. He's not a Aaron Donald type of player that's going to completely change the complexity, or else he would have been paid by now. That being said, teams that are going into the 2023 NFL draft can find an undersized defensive tackle, third or fourth round, maybe second, that could match the productivity of an Ed Oliver. Now, if you want to pay for experience, that's one thing. But there's no guarantee that you're going to trade Ed Oliver, who's on the last year of his deal, for a 4-year controllable contract in the NFL.
Right.
That's just not good business.
Right.
Okay, yep. Unless there's a team that thinks they're in win now and thinks that having an undersized defensive tackle is the way to go, it's not a thing. I just don't understand, unless the Bills give up a draft pick, which I don't think a lot of people would like. Mm-hmm. Oh, give Oliver a fourth for a second or so. That doesn't work that way.
Right.
I'm sorry. That's why this whole trade Oliver, if he gets traded, I'll happily be wrong. And I'll laugh at the team that did it because it's not a good business decision. A lot of people, Paul, explain it to the masses. This is a freaking business that we're talking about. The NFL, we love the game. We love the teams. We love the players. But this is a freaking business we're talking about.
Yeah, there's absolutely no way that Ed Oliver carries value with 31 other teams to the value of trading for picks. Like it's a $10 million pipe bomb because it's going to cost you nothing to trade him because there's no signing bonus on his contract, right? So Ed Oliver is free to trade, which is very attractive if you're Buffalo. The difference is that he's still $10 million. Like that's a lot of money for a player in a contract year. If it were, if it were a disruptive, every down player who's just a freak, sure, right? And I'm not taking away from Ed Oliver as a player, but I'm pretty confident that if Ed Oliver was on the free agent market, he wouldn't be a $10 million a year player. He just wouldn't be. So you're not going to get draft pick compensation for that.
No. And we need to stress, I mean, that's the one thing that I really wanted to stress when we're talking about, like, listen, there are a lot of teams that are up against the cap. And the cheapest way for you to fill your roster with players is to actually get a player that you can select under a 4-year controllable contract umbrella. Now, if you get him in the fifth, obviously, if you get him in the first round, you have the 5th-year option to work with. And that we've explained that many times before on the show. However, that all being considered, that is the cheapest way in order to get players. Now, Paul has said many times, well, let's go out and get a veteran free agent. Well, there's a veteran minimum that is, it's more than the draft compensation, depending on which round, right, Paul?
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Okay.
Yep.
So that being said, you can't just go out and get a veteran. Now, guys, listen, this is the bet that was made by Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills now. Mm-hmm. Now that you have a franchise guy making $40 million, you can his contract, as Paul has said many times, was made to be restructured and give you room. That's what it was. However, when you start paying a defensive end, left tackle, cornerback, quarterback, your center, I'm just going over the biggest contracts that I know that are in my head right now. Mm-hmm. This is what happened. This is what you get. You got to try to find a way to maneuver. And I think the way Beane looked at this offseason was, listen, I'm not going to have a lot of money to spend on free agents. Let's lock up a few guys before we draft a few guys. Mm-hmm. Tremaine, we don't have enough to sign Tremaine. Let him go. Maybe we'll get compensation for his pick. I don't know what the final numbers were, Paul, about what the Buffalo Bills got versus what left. But I think I'm not totally sure Poyer's deal offsets Tremaine's. Does it?
Yeah. No.
Not yet? No,
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, gosh, no.
Speaking of Poyer's deal, I want to get your take on that first, Paul.
Very affordable, man. Like a very affordable deal given the player, right? And I think because Poyer was a player that was clearly not happy with his contract situation, right? Felt like he wasn't getting paid appropriately. But he's walking in with a cap number of 4.8. Like very affordable signing bonus, very affordable salary, some bonuses because he missed some games last year. So kind of to talk about that real quick, when you start talking about bonus structures on NFL contracts, there's something called a likely to be earned bonus and something that's called an unlikely to be earned bonus. And the distinction there is pretty important, right? So let's say the Bills will pay him $1 million for every interception past 10 interceptions in a season, right? That's unlikely to be earned, but It's not because that's ridiculous. It's because unlikely to be earned bonuses are based off the previous year's statistics, right? If Poyer had 11 interceptions last year, then that would be a likely to be earned bonus. It would be figured into his cap number. Likely to be earned bonuses are figured off last year's stats that say what is the likelihood of this player hitting it, and then they just kind of figure that into the cap number for this year. Unlikely are when the player hits it, it counts against the following year's cap number. So players that miss games, when you talk about those incentive contracts, a player that misses games the year prior is more likely to have unlikely to be earned bonuses in their contract. Yes. Therefore, they could sign a higher contract, but ultimately have a lower cap number, right? Because you don't know if they're going to hit those incentive-based bonuses till the year is really on. And sometimes you get credit. A player gets hurt, they don't hit the bonuses that you figure that they were supposed to, and they don't cost you as much money in actual cash spend, so it kind of offsets. But Poyer's deal is fine. I think it's kind of funny how Bean, for some reason, seems to have this magical cap dust where Poyer was like, oh, I'm going to go make a boatload of money on the free agent market. And he came back. Milano said, I'm ready to go hit that free agent market. And Milano comes back. What is with these players coming back? Because Milano, I thought, was set to make a lot of money, and he came back for a good contract. Poyer, I think, was ready to reset somewhere else, and now at age 32, he's right back again. Right? Mm-hmm. What is going on? Why is this happening?
Paul, I have said many, many times about the Buffalo Bills and the NFL in general that it's a very unique business in the fact that you don't get paid for what you did. You get paid for what you're going to do, what the team thinks you're going to do. In that respect, you're going to pay a player for what they're going to give you or how they're going to be productive. Mm-hmm. Now, take a look at Poyer's deal. Mm-hmm. Here's a guy who for 4 straight seasons had 100+ tackles. If the market wasn't going to give him what he wanted and the Bills were his best option, I mean, you've said that many times with Frazier, as far as from a coaching standpoint.
Yeah.
The best place for him to be is in Buffalo because that's the best fit that he has.
Right.
With Poyer, it seemed like the same deal, but the best fit that he had in his entire career was in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if they held the cards, if the market for Poyer wasn't as big as he thought it was going to be for a 31-year-old. Right. Obviously, if the Bills won the Super Bowl last year, he probably gets a lot of money this year. That's all I'm saying. We talked about that quite a bit. But if you come at it from the standpoint that I do, is that you're going to pay a guy for what he's going to give you, and everyone looks at the deal and be like, Brandon Beane stole Poyer. I would go out on a limb right now to say that if he gets 70 tackles this year, I'd be impressed. Mm-hmm. I'm not even counting injury. I'm not counting anything else. I don't think, especially, you had this guy from age 26 to age 31. You got the prime years out of this guy. Why are we going back to the well here? I accepted the fact that Poyer was gone. And I said to myself, I convinced myself, he's 20. He played here from 26 to 31. You got the best years out of football out of this guy. Mm-hmm. It's time to move on. And I know Johnson wasn't the guy. Hamlin got hurt. You expected those guys to take the reins from him and Hyde. That's what you expected by drafting those guys and how you did.
And Jaquan Johnson's a great example. They drafted, they kept around, right?
Yeah.
And when asked to play, lost, right?
But it was great that the Bills got a chance to see that.
Sure.
You got a chance to see
and
evaluate him on the field. You had to know. And, obviously Hamlin's situation is well documented, but this kind of, in both ways, move on. That's what I'm saying. Move on to who, like, draft somebody. You took Poyer, who was a 6th round or 7th round pick, and Hyde, and who was a cast off as far as a slot corner, and you brought them both to Buffalo, and you made him the one of the best pairings in the league. What's to say that McDermott couldn't do that again? I'm just putting everything out on the table. You brought Poyer, who hadn't had more than 43 tackles in a season, injury prone, all this other stuff, and you brought Hyde over, and they ended up being one of the best safety tight ends in the league.
Yep.
What's to say you couldn't do that again? Okay, they missed on Johnson and Hamlin because they both got hurt, and Johnson didn't play that well.
They were so not set at safety that they moved Cam Lewis to safety, right? Like, that's how bad it really was. And it's not like they weren't. It's not like they weren't always in the safety market. League minimum deal, man. Mark, we're going to talk about this, I'm sure, later in the season. But the fact is, like, a player like Cam Lewis, you have to have. Ike Butker at, like, basically league minimum. You have to have that player. Tommy Doyle still on his rookie contract. You have to have that player. Like, you can't afford to not have near league minimum contracts when you're paying your quarterback the money that they're paying. And honestly, Allen's not even that expensive yet. I'll be honest with you guys, 2 years from now, it's going to be double what it is right now, right? So you can't, this is not a year where you can go and spend money in the free agent market. You don't have it to spend, and you can't spend it even if you have it, because the way that it works, Buffalo was under the salary cap for the start of free agency, like they're supposed to be, right? But once the season starts, your 53 rostered players plus your practice squad plus your injured reserve all count towards your salary, towards salary cap. So there's no wiggle room here, right? Like you're going to need $3 million for your draft class, $3 million for your practice squad because there's like 86 people you can put on it now, plus your 53 rostered players. And the fact is you've lost so many players along the way. Like when you draft players, those are the affordable contracts you have to have. You cannot miss this draft. You cannot have another even Vojan Joseph mistake. Like you can't have it.
Ooh.
You can't have another Jack Anderson where you cut him and put him on your practice squad and lost him. You can't have another Isaiah Hodgins. You can't have Rashad Wildgoose. You can't have these players that you lost along the way. You can't miss on signing OJ Howard. Like if you're signing a veteran player, they have to start. They have to play. Yes. Otherwise, you need to draft and have these league minimum deals because you just simply can't afford to set yourself up for when Josh Allen's number is double what it is, right? And Von Miller's still under contract. You can't do it.
Yeah, his contract is crazy.
It is. And you have to hit the draft and you have to hit free agency and you got to find starters somewhere and they have to be making league minimum. What you saw in the secondary this year for Buffalo, there's going to come a point where you're going to see that across the offensive line, and then you're going to see it across the defensive line. You're going to see it in the linebackers, and you're going to find it in weird spots. And that's why when people talk about, oh, you got to go out and get Derrick Henry, no, you can't. You want if Zeke will come here for a $2 million deal, then sure, right? But you're not. Come on. You don't have the money. While it's nice to say, well, you got to take advantage of your window, the fact of the matter is you really need to look at your window is still open, but it won't be if you play your cards wrong. And it's a lot easier to play your cards wrong than play your cards right in the NFL.
So what you're saying is currently, as far as Brandon Beane goes and the Buffalo Bills go, the state of the Bills, this is one of the most important drafts that Beane has had.
The most. I'd argue outside of the Allen draft. Yeah.
I will say that.
Oh, hold up. E2 Brute?
I mean, the Ides of March was Wednesday. I mean, that could have been some. Not a lot of money tied up in dead money though for Beane, which is good because he does it like as far as like you want to talk about missing and this and that. Mm-hmm. Doesn't really do that. He got Milano. He signed Milano to a deal prior to him breaking out. Mm-hmm. Signed Allen to a deal, rough, very affordable. It's going to be like out of the top 10 in a couple of years. His deal. That being said, you mentioned to me off air something about this. Is that the Buffalo Bills, especially, you said this is the most important draft, but I think it extends much further than the draft. In the respect of this, and you mentioned this to me. They got to keep their ear to the ground and really be aware of guys that they liked and where they go as far as practice squads go. Explain to me why that is so vital coming up in this 2023 season for the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. So like you have to have a roster where you can cut people and not have regret over that, right? Because ultimately what has to happen is you need to find a way to find two players who can contribute on this roster via even starting or special teams somewhere off somebody's practice squad. Like after this year's draft, you have to take two of those 53 roster spots that you have, and you need to keep finding and burning out other teams' practice squads, because you're going to get a player who's going to come over on a 1-year contract, right? And then you're going to have their rights over and over again for the next couple seasons afterwards. Buffalo did this with Dane Jackson, right? When you draft a player, they get a 4-year contract. But when you cut them or waive them, they have to clear waivers to make it to your practice squad. Well, now they don't have that 4-year contract anymore, right? Now they're on a year-to-year deal.
Yeah.
So Buffalo had a restricted contract with Dane Jackson. They actually had to restructure that because they needed the money. And that says an awful lot. When you have a situation with a restricted free agent and you have control there, right?
Wait. Hold on. I hope all of you just heard what he said. First of all, it's as far as the So what you're saying is that, let's say the Buffalo Bills, they drafted a guy. Dane Jackson was a 7th round pick. When they drafted him and had them, he's a controllable 4-year deal. As soon as they waive him, because any player that has under 4 years of NFL experience, he doesn't get cut, he gets waived.
Right.
He goes through waivers, then you can put him on your practice squad. Now you sign him to a year-to-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
But what Paul just said, the fact that they had a restricted player in Dane Jackson, they signed him and then had to restructure him, that's like saying, hey, we can't afford Family Dollar. We're going to Dollar Tree today.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, that's exact. So all these people that want to say, why don't you go sign this guy? Why don't you go sign that? Guys, for those of you that are the cap is a myth individuals, I hope this year woke some of y'all up.
Yeah.
Okay, continue on, Paul, but I'm just.
Well, no, but I mean, it's the fact of the matter is Buffalo has to do what other teams have done to them. And they haven't done this well, right? They haven't scoured the opportunities to pick players off of other teams' practice squads because they prefer to just bring their own guys up from the practice squad. Remember, when you sign somebody from another player's practice squad or from another team's practice squad, they have to be on your 53-man roster. Buffalo hasn't wanted to do that. They want to bring their practice squad players up, have them contribute, send them back down to the practice squad. Bring them up, have them contribute, send them back down. They don't want to assign their own players to their 53-man roster for whatever the reason is. But you're going to have to do that this year. You're going to have to do it and hit on at least, you're going to have to hit on 1 or 2 players from another team's practice squad. You don't have a choice because you need to get players under your control, under your thumb at league minimum for the next couple of years with no worries of them going to free agency. So you need to find a Jack Anderson. You need to find a Rashad Wildgoose. You need to find, a Nick McLeod. These players that contribute for other organizations, you have to get them on your roster. And you have to be willing to take those last couple spots of your 53-man roster and burn them till you find them, right?
Yeah.
It's the way that it's got to be. You have to be aggressive in stealing talent from other organizations because you simply hemorrhaged too much talent along the way so far.
Yeah, I'm looking at over the cap right now and looking at the cap numbers of certain players. And some of y'all, this is why Bean probably is in the position that he's in with certain players. That he goes, I mean, did they ever touch Tre'Davious White's contract?
I think they did. Yeah, if I remember correctly,
still at $16 million.
Yeah, I thought they did,
which is weird.
Last year.
Okay. So you're looking at this: Teron Johnson, 9.2, Daquan Jones, 8.5, Von Miller restructured 7.9, Matt Milano is making 7, Dawson Knox making 6, Poyer making 4.8, Ryan Bass making 4.8, and then you got Naeem Hines 4.7, Tim Settle 4.3, Connor McGovern 4, Hardy 3.7.
That one still baffles me, man.
We'll talk about that in a second. But it's like you see a lot of these deals. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's only 7 deals that are over $10 million this year for the Buffalo Bills, and none of them are at 20. I think that's the magic number for right now and for the next couple of years. They want to keep whoever they have's cap number under 20 million. Now, for me, I would give Trey White 2 more voidable years. However, here's the problem. His contract aligns with Elam's.
Yeah.
And you want those guys to overlap.
Yeah, right now it does.
So
I mean, that's if you're good with Kaiir Elam. Like
that's
it's really early.
2023 is going to be huge for Kaiir Elam because if he ends up proving to be what they drafted in the first round, then you're going to see voidable years added to White in order to get the cap number down for next year. Now, the one thing that the Buffalo Bills haven't done, which they were really good at doing when they were bad, they don't do it anymore, is rolling over money. Now, Paul, explain why that is beneficial, obviously, to the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, yeah. So, I'll give an example. Let's use Reggie Gilliam as an example, right?
Okay, sounds good.
So, you have Reggie Gilliam. Right now, his cap number is just a shade over $2 million.
Okay.
Only $300,000 of that is bonus, which means if Reggie Gilliam were to be cut, you're going to save $1.6 million on the cap this year, right? And that's a roster spot that I'm totally fine with giving up on, right? It's totally fine not having Reggie Gilliam on the roster. But the reason that's important to try and save that money is whatever money you don't use goes to next year. And as you run into having more and more expensive contracts, because again, you kind of kick the can down the road because you restructured Diggs, you restructured Name Hines, you restructured Josh Allen, you restructured Stephon Diggs, you've got room to restructure Deion Dawkins. Please, God, no. But he's
already got 2 voidable years built in 2025.
I know. So like there's problems from there's problems from a money standpoint, right? So this is a year where you have to roll over as much money as you can. So when you look at where Buffalo is, they're listed as having 9.5 million in space, but the truth is they need another $6 million just to get through the draft and just to sign their practice squad players. So they really only have $3-ish million. So 1.6 mil from Reggie Gilliam is half of the space is
big deal.
50% of the space that you have right now.
Yeah.
Like that's a roster spot that you just say he's not worth it. It's just not worth it. We need the money, and you need to roll over as much money as you can get. And you need to give Reggie Gilliam's spot to somebody who's going to be making basically league minimum. These are the moves that you have to make. And the fact that you run down what you just said, Mar, how many of your top 10 contracts here, right? So let's look at the Bills' top 10 contracts, right? How many are on offense? How many are on defense, right? We got Allen, Diggs, Dawkins, Morris.
Wait. I just really quick. The way that the picks work, like Paul said, it's like $2 million, right? Reggie Gilliam. It's $2 million.
Yeah.
Shade over $2 million. That is the difference between the 31st and 32nd pick, first year deal.
Yeah.
So it's not like, everyone keeps talking about, you give away $2 million is peanuts. No. It's the difference between a first and a second round pick.
Yeah.
31st, right. The 32nd pick and the 33rd pick.
Yeah.
So would you rather have Reggie Gilliam or have the option for Bean to trade up into that pick? Because if he trades up into that pick after cutting Gilliam, he can afford that pick now.
Mar, and that's a really underplayed dynamic, right?
So
let's say Buffalo wants to package their first and second round pick, right, this year. Let's say there's a player that they just absolutely love at 13.
Okay, so they're
right?
current, I'll just give you guys this. Yeah, the current draft selection for the Buffalo Bills, their cap number for 2023 is $2.5 million. Okay,
right.
If it moved up to 13, 3.3.
Just for the 13th pick.
Just for the 13th pick with the Jets. I don't see them trading with the Jets, but
no, it's just an example though.
Yeah. What I'm saying is
it's $700,000 more just this year.
So if you get rid of a guy that you don't think is going to be a huge contributor, first round pick is going to be a huge contributor.
Has to be. To be.
So would you trade Reggie Gilliam? It's essentially saying, would you trade Reggie Gilliam in order to move up in the draft? And those are the moves, like you said, Paul, those are the moves behind the scenes that people don't really recognize. Like, why did they trade up to this and that? Why didn't they trade up? Well, they can't afford that pick.
Right.
That's a guy that they maybe, if they trade up, they have to cut, put on the practice squad and go year to year now.
Right.
And then you're also incurring a dead money bomb, not as huge, when you cut a player or you waive a player that you've drafted. The Buffalo Bills, I don't want to say it. I don't want to, it's not a lot of money, but they have a dead money hit of $162K for Matt Ariza.
Yep. Sure do.
I mean, I would take $162,000 right now. I mean, I think a lot of people would. But
ain't that the truth?
The point was, okay, so I mean, you were talking about the top contracts though.
Yeah. So when you're pulling back the top contracts for Buffalo, right? Again, it's 4 offensive players, 6 defensive players. Okay. And then pulling that back even further, you talk about Bean and their premier positions, right? So Bean is only ever interested in drafting what they call premier positions. And the reason that they are only ever interested in drafting premier positions is because they don't want to spend money in the free agency market because you get hamstrung to these monster deals. Von Miller's an example, right? Like you're with Von for the ride. Whatever the next 3 years, you're riding whatever train Von is on because you tied yourself to him as an organization now and with a ton of money.
But he covered himself in case Von retires though, right?
That's true.
Because a lot of it's tied into base, correct?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that because of how the contract is structured, and I'm going to try this. I don't know if it'll work, Paul. Let me just try this for everybody. I don't know if you guys could see it. Hold on. Is it frozen? I don't know if I'm frozen.
Over the cap? I could share it real quick.
Yeah, you share it.
Yeah, no problem. I got you.
All right, so I'll try to share. I'll try to have Paul share it for you guys. Sorry if we froze for a second, but I'll have Paul share it. He could give you the deal. We're going to go to the side. It'll be maximized on the screen. But the way that Von Miller's deal works is that, okay, his cap number in 2024, let's just say, for example, is 23.8.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yep. 23.8 in 2024. You guys could see that. However, 17.1 of that is tied up in base salary.
Right.
Now, as Paul will explain many times as he has, what they do in order to free up cap space is that they'll take the base, give it, convert it to bonus and prorate it over the rest of the deal. Player gets the money now. They're never going to turn that down. And you get to give some cap relief for your player. Mm-hmm. However, the way that the base salary is for Von Miller is that it's 17 in 2024, 17 in 2025, 19 and 29 over the last 2 years. If a player retires, the Bills are not on the hook for the base salary.
Right. Yep. It's only that prorated bonus.
It's only that prorated bonus. So,
and by the way, that prorated bonus really wasn't all that bad until this year, right?
No, because they had to push it. They
had to push that back because they needed the cap space, right? So they created a ton of cap space with Von recently, right? But so this didn't look like this even just a few weeks ago.
I'm just saying though, if the Bills, let's just cross our fingers, the Bills win the Super Bowl this year.
Mm-hmm.
The likelihood of Von retiring is pretty high.
Yeah, I agree.
So a lot of that money that you have might be opened up a little bit more for
that's
you
true.
in the next couple of
years.
Yeah,
that's very true. And, the truth of the matter is, right, Von got this money via signing bonus. And don't forget, we saw Drew Brees restructure his contract to minimize dead cap as a parting gift for Mickey Loomis. We've seen players give money back, right? Like we've seen players give money back to the organization and restructure contracts so they can retire and not kneecap the franchise. Like that's happened before. I'm not saying that would, but it's just saying it is a possibility. But most of Von's money, you're absolutely right. It's all tied up in base salary. And that allows the Bills to restructure over and over again to kind of make his cap figure lower. But again, that's a ticking time bomb, because if Von decides that he doesn't want to play football anymore, whatever that remaining bonus is, you're going to have to take on your cap right away, and there's no getting around that.
But is there a way that the Buffalo Bills could, as far as the cap goes, I think this happened before, could they have that extend over 2 different seasons if they want to?
Yeah.
Is there a way you could split it? Like if his cap number was like 25 million or something like that. Mm-hmm. For his bonus, if he retires,
he'd have to wait. Yeah, he'd have to wait till a particular part of the season. So he'd take up a roster spot is the way that works. So he'd say, "Well, I'm retired," but he'd have to take up a roster spot after a particular date in the season. He can then announce his retirement, and they can split that cap number across 2 seasons. But that can happen.
Gotcha. I'm just looking at it on YouTube, so everyone else is seeing it. It is, you can actually kind of see the numbers on there, which is good.
Good.
So
sweet.
But yeah, I mean. The likelihood of Von playing out his entire deal. I mean, this is why these contracts are now the only difference between this contract and a contract that, let's say, Howie Roseman would have signed is that there would have been 3 voidable years added on to Von Miller's deal.
Yeah, that's the way it is. But I mean, Bean's been doing that, right? Voidable years are apparently your best friend around here.
It's the minimal. Well, the one that he did was, if you guys want to put up Milano,
Paul, if you want to put up
Milano's, and the fact that he put Milano's, he had 2 voidable years built into Milano's and then extended it.
Yep.
He actually gave him, now he only has 1 voidable year in it,
right?
Which is amazing to me.
Well, and let's talk about what that voidable year means, right? So a voidable year is just basically a space to park signing bonus money. That's really all it is. The player's not really under contract. This shows up as dead money in the 2027 year. Milano is not on the team. This $4.8 million shows up as dead money for the 2027 season.
Yes.
Now, at any point, they could restructure and extend and make this a real year, and then that 2027 goes, I'm a real boy, and then Matt Milano's on the team. But the fact is that you've seen voided years be something that Bean has utilized to try and free up some money, because otherwise this near $5 million would be spread out evenly across the years in these contracts, right? So it's only a couple $1 million a year. But as we just talked with Reggie Gilliam, $1.6 million is a lot of money right now for Buffalo, given the fact that just because it says they've got near $10 million in cap space, they don't. They have like 3-ish. Realistic.
Yeah. Because you have to you got to take into account the rookie picks.
Right.
Yeah, as far as the like you said, that's where they park some cash.
That's it. That's what they do.
One of the most glaring examples of this was a lot of people were confused with the Emmanuel Sanders deal. Was like the most.
Yeah.
If you want to give somebody an introduction of how voidable years work, they signed him to a 1-year deal. Ended up being a actual 2-year deal. Mm-hmm. However, the second year was avoided in order to stash cash there, because let's just say, for example, they signed him to a 1-year $10 million deal. That's a lot of money for him. Oh wait, it was only $5 million the first year because they decided to cut it in half.
Right.
And so so we're going to Hines now. We're checking out Hines.
Well, I think Nyheim Hines' contract is kind of important, right? So the reason Hines' deal is pretty important is because, remember, Nyheim Hines was traded, and usually traded players, that bonus money doesn't impact anything. Like all that signing bonus money is just gone. Like the team that currently has that player doesn't need to worry about that. And that's really, that's kind of the case with Buffalo. If you look here, right, they got listed bonus money.
Just to explain what Paul's saying is that, like, because Nyheim Hines was traded from the Colts, the bonus money that the Colts were paying him, they eat that, and the Bills don't have to do it. They only have to take care of his base salary. As you could see on the screen, there's no prorated in between the base salary and the roster bonus.
Well, and I think it's important to call out, we had talked about the difference earlier in the stream. If you didn't catch it, wait till the end, come back. We talked about the difference between a likely to be earned bonus and an unlikely to be earned bonus. This $340,000 is a likely to be earned bonus. It's actually a per game roster bonus. Right. So based off the number of games that he was already on, it was deemed that this would be likely for him to earn it. So if he gets hurt game 1, this $340,000 doesn't actually ever come into play. If he plays less games this year, again, this doesn't come into play. But because he played so many games last year in his contract, there's a per game roster bonus. So that's what this is. It's a likely to be earned bonus.
But there's a little note there that says, as of today, March 19th, $1.7 million injury guarantee vests to full guarantee if he does get hurt.
Yep, correct.
So a lot of those guys, and those are commonplace. And I know we went full, contract talks with some of these, going on with the Buffalo Bills players, but I think a lot of that is everyone wants to hit the panic button. Everyone wants to say, why hasn't Bean made a move yet? Well, financially, as we just talked about, they have $9.5 million. Why don't they sign somebody? Why don't they restructure this guy? First of all, the player has to want or agree to the restructure.
Right. Now,
most of the players do agree to it because they're getting money now. And when you have a league that doesn't have guaranteed deals, they'll take the money now. Okay, that's number one. Number two is there's $9.5 million in cap space. However, the rookie pool for the Buffalo Bills, as Paul said, how much is it? It's 3.
Yeah, it's about 3. It's like 2.8 or something.
Well, you only really have 6. So a lot of these players, sometimes when you decide to add voidable years to a player's deal and then giving them money now, they're saying that clock's running for them too. So they're sitting there and they're going, well, I got 2 voidable years built in 2025. So I'm only really a Buffalo Bill for 2023 and 2024.
Right. Well, and you're not tying to Nyheim Hines at all, right? Nyheim Hines is free to cut. So, there's really nothing with Nyheim Hines' deal that is concerning. You're not tied to his roster spot. And to be honest with you, for a kick returner, this is pretty expensive, right? If that's the role he's really going to play for you. If he's going to be your third down back, that's great. I'd argue that you probably need a little bit more power in your run game than you have right now between James Cook and Nyheim Hines. So, I would really love to see the Buffalo adds some level of power. Reggie Gilliam is not that guy, so I'm happy to punt that roster spot for that sort of a need. They make big running backs every year, man. You don't have to have the best vision to go 2 yards. Just saying.
Could you click on Daquan Jones really quick for me?
Yeah, we can go to Daquan.
All right. I just want to say, because he has a voidable year and a lot of people were talking about Jones. I love the Jones signing. I mean, the guy's 32. I mean, let's
look at that. A guy in a Panthers jersey. Sorry. Just had to bring that up.
Stop it. So I just want to give everyone an example. Like, let's say, for example, the Buffalo Bills want to try to free up $2.5 million. Let's say they go over to Daquan. They say, hey, listen, your base salary for this year is 6.7. Why don't you say we move 5 of that to bonus, and then we'll prorate it over the rest of your deal, which is the voidable year in 2024.
Right.
So what happens is 2.5 goes on 2023, 2.5 goes on 2024,
right,
which will turn, you'll pay for it next year. However, you're opening up $2.5 million. And the important part of that is his base salary right now is 6.7. It's not guaranteed. If you if you move 5 million of that to his bonus, he gets that money in his account today. So why wouldn't a player in the, like that would want to do that? So, you move the guy's cap number a little bit, and you end up giving yourself a little bit of relief in that. So
yeah, and plus when you have voidable years in a contract, it kind of makes it a little easier to go to the player and say, listen, how about we extend you? Right? Because if the player's already on the books for you from an organizational standpoint, so the player's like, well, if you're coming to me about an extension, then you're not coming to me to cut me. So let's go. Because also Daquan Jones, from a maturation standpoint in his career, right? It's entering age 32. If you're Buffalo, you're really looking to get out by age 34. So you got a little gap,
a little wiggle room. Yeah,
I got a little gap here, especially with the way that he played last year. I think you'd be comfortable extending him for another year. As I said, he's already on the books. So maybe we see a Daquan Jones extension where they turn that voided year into an actual year and then add 2025 as a voided year.
Well, go to the stats page, Paul, and then show the masses. He's never played more than 63% of snaps.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. I mean, if we're talking about a guy at age 32 and you look at his defensive snap count and the guy's got 80, 75, 80, right, that's a big deal.
Von Miller, 90. I
know,
90.
Right? It totally goes against the argument that we're talking about. But the fact is, over the last 3 seasons, this guy hasn't played more than 61% of the snaps, which is okay. He's got some juice left in the tank. Why not extend him to 2025 if the way that he's been playing? So I mean, those are the things that are taken into consideration. We're trying to kind of tell everybody that.
Yep, agreed. So it's not flashy, guys, and listen, unfortunately, it's just the way that it is. This is not flashy stuff. We could probably stop sharing this. It's not flashy stuff, but this is where your organization is. And, the more you say, hey, there's a big guy out there, Buffalo's going to go get him and they're going to find a way to pay him. The truth is Beane's done, right? He is done. There's nothing more to see here. Because what's going to happen is you're just going to damage the more players you sign now, you're damaging compensation picks. Right. You don't want to continue to do that. Although Buffalo's kind of already kneecapped any compensation picks they were going to have. We'll cut a whole episode on explaining that if people would be interested.
Yeah.
But like, there's a point where you just have to say, we have to be done. Right. We have to be done. And they have to be done right now. Even though there's money there and there's still players that are likely to be cut in order to make room. The fact is that you just have to be done unless a player gets cut from another team that you're really, 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 really interested in, because you're likely not going to trade a draft pick for somebody else's contract. You just simply don't have the space for it. You can't take on somebody else's bad contract. You just don't have the money for it. Buffalo's done for now. You might see them do something like a Daquan Jones extension. That'd be very smart. But other than that, I don't see anything else happening.
Wait a minute, Paul. You just said that they can't trade a draft pick for a bad contract currently.
Yeah.
But everyone's saying that the Bills should trade a bad contract in Ed Oliver.
I know. Okay. Yeah, $10 million a year is a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, even though it is for 1 year and it's the 5th-year option, but,
Right.
I mean, people have to realize, like, if he gets traded, personally, it's not a very good business move. It really isn't. And
Right.
you want to trade Oliver and a 4-year controllable deal
Mm-hmm.
for someone else's, used goods.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would signal to me that Bean is a lot more savvy and he doesn't trust himself in the draft.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That's to me. I mean, but this is hands down, as you said it earlier, Paul. This is hands down probably the most important draft for Brandon Bean, because you're now you have to try to fill your roster with cheap players that are positive contributors to your team, because you're now paying your quarterback like a franchise quarterback.
That's absolutely
and
right.
that is the biggest thing that is going on into this draft. Get Allen some help, get a couple guys here and there. Everyone, it's funny. It's almost, I used to say it was week to week. Now it's almost like day to day. I see these mock drafts going out. It was the offensive guard from Florida, Torrance or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it was a wide receiver. And then it was a running back. It was like, oh, if you think they're going to pass on this guy for this guy and this, blah, blah, blah. It is crazy. There are some needs on this Buffalo Bills team. However, the Buffalo Bills and the Bills Mafia #Nation, we have to be very, very conscious of one very, very big thing. From 1996 to 2017, there was no franchise quarterback for the Buffalo Bills.
That's right. Yep.
So this may be foreign territory for all of us, in the fact that in the salary cap era, having a franchise guy, sometimes he's got to play hero ball and pull you out of a couple games because you don't have the horses. That's what the deal is at this point. So, I mean, I would love for them to get all these. I'd love to see Derrick Henry standing next to Josh Allen in the backfield.
Yeah,
that would be amazing. I would love to have a DeAndre Hopkins on the outside and Diggs line up in the slot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd love to be able to trade out Oliver for a 1st-round pick.
Absolutely.
Don't tell me, like, I would love for these things to happen. However, because of the financial situation that your team is in and the business side of the NFL that comes in, that not a lot of people really pay attention to, this is what you have.
Yeah.
This is exactly what you have right now.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. And the truth is, like, you don't get there paying Teron Johnson $9.2 million. It's really, really hard to get the resources that you need in the NFL when you've got money tied up in players that you can't go anywhere with for a while, and you got to take it's risk reward, right? And, just like I had mentioned, compensatory picks, Bean doesn't seem to pay any mind to them. Buffalo didn't get any compensatory picks. And believe it or not, like OJ Howard negatively impacted Buffalo from a compensatory pick standpoint. And the free agency is still happening. So if Jordan Phillips signs somewhere, maybe Buffalo will come out positively in getting some draft picks for losing players. But you don't get there by re-signing your own guys. You lose compensatory picks that way. Jordan Poyer signs somewhere else. He probably figures in the compensatory formula. Roger Saffold signs somewhere else. He figures in the compensatory formula. As sad as it is, sometimes you have to let good players leave on their contract, and you need to have a game plan. And Buffalo right now is still kind of fishing to figure it out. And, this is an odd place to be. Buffalo is, when you talk about franchise quarterbacks, they've got one of the few, right? There's a handful of them that are always competitive teams. And you'd think that team is a team that players would take less money to go to. That is not the way that it goes. It's just not. Players at the end of their career will take less money to go someplace to win, right? They don't do it when they're 26. This doesn't happen. No,
they won't.
Yeah.
And it's just the reality of the situation that goes on with the team currently. Just to give you guys something to ponder as we take off here. Paul wants the Bills to draft a left tackle, kick Dawkins down to guard, and kick Bates into center and cut Mitch Morse. Just want to let you guys know that. He told me that off camera. No, I'm just kidding.
Actually,
stop it.
Listen, Allen doesn't call his own protections. He's got to pull the Band-Aid off at some point.
That's another episode.
That's probably a message for another day. Yeah,
that is a message for another day. Is the fact that he's like, what now? He doesn't do what? Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't call his own protections, man.
So hashtag Nation Bills Mafia, thank you for joining us. Obviously, all of our stuff could be found in our link tree, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. This episode will be on iTunes and Spotify. Our sponsor for tonight, Mr. Rogers Homes, in association with Crier Media. The charity for 2022-2023 is the Williams Syndrome Foundation. All super chats will be going there. Thank you guys for joining us for this impromptu State of the Buffalo Bills address. Hopefully you guys took this journey with us and you were like, okay, I feel a little bit better about the Bills right now. I'm not going to be panicking about them getting a big name free agent because financially you can't go out and buy filet mignon when you got New York strip steak money. So this is the way it goes. It's the way it is. Thank you guys for joining us. For Paul, I am Mario, and we are out of here.
Hello, fellow Bills fans. Sean Rogers, realtor and lead of the Mr. Rogers Homes team. Did you know that real estate is one of the best ways to build wealth, and right now is one of the best times to own an investment property in Arizona? Please reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions so we can take the next step to your financial freedom here in the Valley of the Sun, utilizing real estate. As always, God bless America and go Buffalo!